Hello, everyone. Welcome to XYZ live stream number 12. Lots of really big things to talk about today, especially the most important thing, the results of the football yesterday. How did you find the game, Dave? Like, did you,
Matty? All of a sudden, you look like Short Bus, Matty.
Yeah, I know. It's actually this hat. I actually took a picture of this hat.
Get that thing off. Get that thing off.
I'm going to have to do the whole live stream
the whole live stream.
The whole live stream, I reckon. The whole live stream in this beanie.
It's okay.
I just have an urge to wear this hat for some reason.
I have no idea why. Yeah, it looks like all my predictions about how Melbourne just went down the gurgler. I've got to say, Hawthorn was scary. Like the pressure that they had all around the ground was pretty good. And Jesse Hogan, he was playing in the middle. He was one of Melbourne's top possession getters. But whenever we went forward for three quarters, it didn't look like we were going to score a goal. That's where we fell down.
Yeah. I think it was just Alistair Clarkson magic. I think he's just turned the team around for at least 1 week. We're just.
Why did you choose Melbourne? Why couldn't you have done it against, I don't know, like Carlton?
Well, we'll probably do it against Carlton as well. Yeah. But who knows, man? Like a whole lot of teams. It was actually a really crap week for football. There were a lot of really big results, like in terms of margins.
Oh, like lots of blowouts and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
well, you saw me. Like I was like 15 minutes into the last quarter, I was calling up "Blow the Siren" because I could see it coming. Melbourne were done, and then the avalanche came. Yeah,
like I said, that goal from Gunston on the boundary outside 50 was Yeah. Clean your hands, boys. Just get home because the game's over. When you're kicking goals like that, putting yourself 6 goals up, you're done.
Yeah, the team's in flow. Blow the siren.
The team's in flow. We're in flow, and it was all over. The tackles were off the charts. It was actually the Hawks played pretty well. We got 2 injuries though. Poppy and Cyril are both out for the next few weeks.
Oh, what a shame!
Did a footballer?
We didn't even need them.
Did a footballer faint or something recently?
Yeah, he had a heart issue, like an irregular heartbeat or something like that, and he fell over and had to go to hospital, which is unfortunate. It's not the way you want to leave a football match.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you actually kept up on the issues of football there, Dia. Well done. You've that's a point to you.
I had my moments.
Yeah. They're rare, but you do have them every now and then.
For sport, yes. This is true.
Yeah. So anyway, everyone, in case you haven't met, this is El Dia Opina, which is the opinion of the day in Spanish. You can just call her Dia, or as I call her, El. No, I'm not going to say that in public. We're here to discuss the issues of the week, and there's been quite a few. So starting off the bat, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about South African farmers. Obviously, I think we're going to talk about Mark Zuckerberg in Congress, because that is an important issue that we need to at least go over. And some big news coming out of Queensland that I literally just found out about 2 hours ago. Wasn't initially planned for this live stream, but we just found out about it 2 hours ago. Some absolutely horrendously left-wing nonsense coming out of the Palaszczuk government in Queensland. So just to take us off.
And Trump and Syria.
Oh yeah, Syria, of course. I forgot about Syria.
Yeah, I was like, isn't he skipping through the major
plot point? That was the main topic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Just happened today. That is the main topic, Syria. So there's actually quite a lot to talk about today. There's been a lot this week. It's been a big news week, actually.
We've had a couple of dead ones. Subjects.
Yeah, some upbeat subjects. Unfortunately, one of them isn't El Dia Opina. However, we do. That's a really bad laugh.
It's a bad fake laugh.
This is going to go on for an hour and a half, isn't it, guys?
Let's get on with it. He keeps insulting me. He could just get to the subject.
Look at the Hawks, like right there. The Hawks.
Yeah.
Go the Hawks.
Good work, Short Bus.
Oh, what are you talking about? So we'll start off with the South African farmer protests. So you wanted to talk about that. So there was a couple of protests in Queensland and Perth. just in support of South African farmers. And Avi Yemeni found himself in Perth as well to deliver a petition. Yeah. So what do you want to add to that, Dave?
Well, yeah, just to summarize what's going on at the moment, like there was a protest there was a rally in Brisbane on March 25. They had about 2,000 people there. So then last weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend before on April 8, in Perth, there were about 3,000 people. Both of those rallies were they were great. They were like family events. They just went off without a hitch. And then in Perth on Friday, about 50 members of the Australian Liberty Alliance with Avi Yemeni, they delivered a petition to Julie Bishop's office to take in refugees. Apparently this petition was signed by about 50,000 people. And so another rally is being organised for Adelaide sometime in May. And so I just think that these are tremendous things going on, because like you see a movement developing here in Australia, and it's a very positive thing. Like people are just making just really good points, and there are a few things. Like I find it interesting that like the left-wing opposition to it is just it's stepping up incrementally. Like there was no opposition whatsoever in Brisbane. In Perth on April 8, there were just a handful, like just maybe half a dozen Aboriginal protesters who are trying to make a scene. In Perth, like Socialist Alliance actually physically opposed Avi Yemeni and the ALA, and there was some scuffle until police pulled them apart. So what this tells me is that the left realized that something is going on here, and what I think is going on is that this is the start of a movement. This could be the new Reclaim Australia. A few years ago, like Reclaim Australia was really kicking off until it sort of got part hijacked, and then the Socialist Alliance and Antifa basically turned it into big public brawls. What we're talking about here. yeah, Stephen Jolly and the Victorian Socialists. He's got a history. So what we're seeing here could be the start of a populist movement in Australia. When you look at some of the signs which are being held up in Perth, like there are signs which are saying "White Lives Matter, let the right ones in." What we see here is a real, just what I have termed identity consciousness forming. Like we've been told for years and years that we have to accept like hundreds of thousands of people from Asia and from Africa, and from places that to basically change the demographic balance of Australia. And when we get told that we're not allowed to bring in white farmers because that would be racist, that's a really massive red pill for people. And I think it's going to actually make people actually embrace their European identity a lot more. What do you guys
agree. I think it's really interesting to see people finally waking up to the left wing and their decades of anti-white and communist nonsense. It's good because when you see them protesting what are essentially families, and when they're also protesting against people being brutalized for the color of their skin, so they're protesting the saving of people who are being brutalized for the color of their skin. I mean, that makes a pretty stark contrast to proves without a doubt what opponents to the left have been saying for so long, and that's that if the shoe was on the other foot, if it was happening to white people, you wouldn't care. And they've turned around and go, like, whenever you say that in the past, oh, that's nonsense, da 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 da. And now, like, you can't deny that that's the truth. Like, that is 100% the truth. And they've shown it to be the truth by crying more racist at the idea that we would select who we want to come here as refugees. And the great thing about I saw those signs like White Lives Matter and we should choose who's coming here.
I made a point of actually making them the headline, like, photo of the article. Yeah. Like, I found that a really big deal.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's good to I don't know. I'm really happy to see so many people come out and actually really taking to the streets for something that's so important. And it is important that people understand that we are the ones who decide who comes to our country. Like you can't just open the border. You see so many leftists coming out and saying, "Oh well, the refugee program is supposed to be non-discriminatory." Da 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 da. Says who? They always cite this dumb treaty that we signed with the UN that forces us sort of forces us to take these refugees. We don't have to listen to the UN. The UN's as corrupt as anything. They're not our moral arbiters. We can actually do whatever we want.
The UN is trying to help Palestinians. And they're like, anyway, sorry, keep going.
Your voice is so squeaky.
No, it's not.
It's just like squeaking right in my ears.
Should I even input or should I just leave?
No, you can have an input. You just got to wait until I finish my point, and then you can have a point.
Interrupt him. It's the only way you'll get a word in.
I'm not going to let him mansplain. No.
Well, this is how you do it. Okay, you've got to wait. You got to wait your turn, and then you can have an input.
Then I can womansplain. Then I can womansplain. So I keep going.
Then you can explain to me how to iron shirts or something. Okay, so essentially, yeah, see, I was right in the flow, and you've just gone bang, squeaky right in my headphones. So, what would you like to add to that? I think I've pretty much made the point that I wanted to make, in that we can choose who we want to come here, and if we want to choose people that are more likely to integrate, refugees that are more likely to integrate, then that is our damn right as a sovereign nation, and no one else can say anything about it. So, what do you want to add in there, Squeaky?
I agree with everything you said. What David said about Reclaim Australia, that's a very good point. I would have never thought of it like that until he just said that. And it makes perfect sense, actually. And what I wanted to say was that people talk often about systemic racism and how racism is an invention of the white people because they're the ones that have power. But in South Africa, that would mean that the tables are turned. Systemic racism is created by the black people, by the ANC. So the white people, even though they had the land first and they did the apartheid first, which was bad, the white people never were as I probably shouldn't wait. Let me reword that. Black people still had access to water and to living conditions and all of that stuff. They weren't being murdered by the whites just for the sake of being black, whereas that's what's happening now. So does the left even realize their circular reasoning to that? That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's pure hypocrisy.
That's a very good point.
Thank you. See, I had something valid to add.
Well,
thank you, David. Thank you very much, David. I'm going to address you and only you.
It's out of all proportion, because it's one of the things that the left will argue. They'll sort of argue, oh, well, now that the boot is on the other foot, the white people don't like it. And I've heard that kind of argument before. And they're saying, oh, well, there's a general feeling you get from left-wing people, and they'll say it, that the white people in South Africa deserve what's happening to them. But the fact is, apartheid actually means separate development. So what that means is that facilities were provided for black people, and as you say, they weren't killed simply for the color of their skin. They weren't killed to take away their resources.
No, they were treated badly, of course.
Well, black people from neighbouring countries were actually trying to get into South Africa when apartheid was still in place.
Oh,
That's
I know.
One of the things that we've got to think about as well.
And the economy never ran better. Now that it's under the rule that it's under, it's shit.
Yeah, I get on that video that I made on my one and only smash hit. I've been getting quite a few comments from people sort of saying, oh, yeah, well, you know what? They deserved it, blah, 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 blah. And I actually had a passenger the other day. I brought it up and he's just like, what are you talking about? They took the land and sort of ran off the left-wing talking points. And I'm just thinking, that's ridiculous.
They didn't take the land. That's not.
There was nobody there. There's no
archaeological evidence.
They the land.
Whoa, squeaky ears. Just yelling in my ears again.
Sorry.
There we go. So there, the DNA evidence. Oh, excuse me?
Continue.
Anyway, the DNA evidence and the archaeological evidence shows that there was no permanent settlements in South Africa. I think wasn't there there was a few, maybe there were a few nomadic tribes in sort of the north. Dave, you're a bit more of an expert on that than I am.
Yeah, there are a few nomadic tribes. Some of them actually sort of disappeared a little bit before, or sort of around the time that the South Africans were there, but there was very little contact. And there are some native tribes who are still around, and they've been there for centuries. But the bulk of the black people in South Africa came in there by migration.
Yeah.
And the irony is that they are actually descendants of people who committed genocide.
Well, that's the thing. Is
and isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
And ultimately, I mean, okay, so there were probably a few disparate tribes in the area, but what there wasn't were permanent settlements and farms. So the idea that white South Africans somehow stole farmland and stole wealth off African tribes is complete nonsense. It's provably untrue. Yes. They didn't steal any wealth at all. No. They might have occupied some land, or I think didn't they purchase some land off some tribes and they started farming some land, and they had to deal with the local natives, but they didn't. The land wasn't being farmed; it wasn't being developed. I believe maybe some had cattle or something. Like, what happened with that, Dave? With the local tribes that had cattle?
All I know is that there are tribes in Africa who drink the blood of cattle.
Well. Yeah, there's things like that. So really, the situation is a lot more. It's a lot more grey than white people stole the land, because they didn't steal the land; they developed the land. There's a difference between saying, "Oh well, you've got farms on this land, you've built this, you've got mines, you've got towns. We're going to come and conquer, and we're going to steal, and we're going to take what you've built," and actually going there and saying, "All right, no one's done anything to this land. Let's make the land a lot better, and we can all enjoy the benefits of additional wealth." So that's really what's happened. I mean, and the idea that black people are somehow taking back farms that belong to them, it's complete nonsense. I mean, if they really want it back, how about the white people just go, "All right, well, you know what? We're just going to burn all our farms to the ground, and you can have the land." Good luck with it. Good luck with it.
White flight.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, ultimately,
they'll start leaving, and it'll be called white flight. Yeah.
That's that's what happened in Zimbabwe anyway, and they created an economic downturn, an economic collapse, essentially. So I don't know. I just think it's very silly, and ultimately, no one alive. Okay, even if you assume the very, very, very worst, like the white people came and they destroyed they killed millions of black people. Well, they didn't do that. They weren't that. Even if you assume the worst possible scenario and assume white people were as evil as possible, which is completely untrue. But even if you assume that doesn't justify the stealing of land now, because no one alive today was alive then, and no one alive today has committed the atrocities then. So the idea that you're going to steal this land and give it to someone else who also didn't actually earn it, because they weren't alive back in the day either, is complete. It's complete nonsense. It's just an excuse for communism.
It's an excuse to be able to rape children. It's an excuse. They're doing it to justify their evil actions. They're boiling children and cutting throats and doing all that stuff that they find enjoyable, and they're saying it's because of this, but they're only using that as a scapegoat. They just want to do barbaric things. It's not political. It's just evil.
Well, it's political in the sense that
they're using that as the reason.
Yeah, the communists are using it as a reason to take power and entrench their own power at the expense of a group that they want to victimize.
Yeah, but you're right about Australia. You're right that it's great seeing all of them come together.
It's excellent.
That's right.
If we can take that back to the point that I was making at the start. I do find it really interesting that the left are catching onto this. Watch out for the term proto-fascist, because they're going to start using that. That's what they called us people on the XYZ when we started out. Because when we started out, we were talking quite a lot about Islam. And when you start...
It's a fun subject.
Yeah, the fun subject. When you start talking about this, you really start to... It does make you think about your own identity. And that's why the left like to use the term oh my God, proto-fascist, because they know that it's going to make like Aussies actually sort of rethink the way, rethink all the propaganda that we've been fed for the last few decades. And so you've seen that on the XYZ. We talk a lot more about our European identity and just asserting nationalism, whether it's civic nationalism or ethnic nationalism. And the thing is about that is that nationalism is kryptonite to the left, because the whole point of Marxism is to divide people of a country against one another. And so the moment that we start bringing up the concept that we might be unified as a people, they start calling out fascists, because then they've got nothing. They can't. That when we're unified as a people, where it's like an immune system against Marxism, and so you're going to see the Marxists kick up a real stink over South Africa, because the last thing they want is the people of Australia uniting over the issue.
Oh, well, it's too late. Their opposition is already causing our uniting over it. So.
Yeah,
I think they're really jumping the shark quite a lot, these leftists. I think they've really, over the last couple of years, they've lost the control of the narrative. They've lost control of the direction of where the discussion, or even the not just the world, the national discussion, but the global discussion is going. Where before they had full control over the narrative, and they don't like it at all, which is ironic, because they can sit, like, you see this feminist nonsense where they're always talking about, oh, well, men are losing their power, and then these other people talking about, oh, well, whites are losing their power, toxic masculinity, white supremacy, all this kind of crap. But then when they start losing control of the narrative, they start getting really angry and really violent.
Get pretty toxic, don't they? Yeah,
they do.
Yeah. So, I mean, a few people are saying that, oh, you know what, it's an unfair distribution of land, but there's nothing unfair about it. The land is bought. The land is bought and paid for. And if you're going to talk about, oh, well, you know, because whites have more land than other people, well, too bad. Well, maybe blacks should buy it off the white people then. Don't just steal it. How about you go and buy it and offer fair value for it, rather than confiscating it down in the barrel of the gun? If you're worried about fair distribution of wealth, I mean, don't be talking about fair distribution of land when you're also saying, well, we're going to make it fair. We're going to make it fair in our sense by stealing it off someone with guns, so robbing people of their land. I mean, that's just absolute garbage. That's justifying violence. I don't care what happened 400 years ago. You can't justify violence today. You can't justify the rape and murder of children and people who weren't even alive during apartheid. During apartheid, where, like you said, people, you know, whites weren't going and murdering black people for their color of their skin, and if they were getting tried and put in prison, as they rightly should, because that's what a civilized society does. You know,
Nelson Mandela was jailed for.
Oh yeah, Nelson Mandela, like the leftist media.
He's not a good guy. He's perceived as a good guy, but he's
not at all.
And his wife is even worse.
Yeah, and that's
anyway, that's off topic. But anyway.
Well, I mean,
it's right on topic. Yeah.
Well, it is right. It is right on topic. And the thing is, like, Nelson Mandela, everyone says, like, all the lefties say he was a political prisoner. He wasn't a political prisoner. All he had to do was renounce violent revolution, and they would have released him. But essentially,
as president, the country went to shit.
Yeah,
the economy went to shit.
Yeah. So I mean, okay.
But this is off topic. We're supposed to be talking about.
Well, we were talking about white South African farmers because of the protests, so it's not really off topic. But no, that's pretty much. I mean, the situation. This is what I always say. It's like the situation. You got to worry about what is the situation right now. Like, what are we going to do right now? And you don't solve past ills by committing violence now against people now. I mean, how far back do we want to go? Does that mean me as the descendants of English people, I get to get reparations from Italians because they conquered Britain, or Normans because they conquered in 1066? How about Vikings? Can I go into Scandinavia and say your great times 20 grandfather punched my grandfather and took gold from a monastery down the street? You have to give me gold because something happened 1,000 years ago. I mean, it's complete nonsense.
The Muslim world actually had white slaves prior to having black slaves.
Yeah.
So that means you could claim reparations from Muslims if you really
that's
to
exactly
go that
right.
far back.
Like, exactly right. I mean, so it's just the communist tactic of distract, divide, and conquer, you know, like they distract from the facts, divide people based on identity, and conquer them each one by one.
Yeah, deflect.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's just a nonsense argument. You can really just dismiss it because it's
circular.
Anything asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Anything that's not an argument can be dismissed without an argument. It's very, very simple to deal with it. And people are sort of starting to wake up to this fact, and they're not liking it. And this is why they're so upset about the South African farmers. So anyway, do you guys want to add anything else on this topic before we move on to the next one?
No.
Yeah, let's get on to Syria. Yeah.
Okay, so as we have all been seeing, we got a big notice that Bashar al-Assad had, for some reason, used chemical weapons of mass destruction. That's what I'm calling them. I'm going to call them chemical weapons of mass destruction, or CWMDs.
You didn't even say that properly.
Right?
Nothing.
Silly girl.
Anyway.
So yeah, a lot has been said about this, and he did end up like sending missiles in there or something like that, which is an act of war ultimately. And thank God, Russia has blinked and not actually retaliated as they said they would. Thank God for that, because that could have been an absolute disaster. But still, we need to be holding Donald Trump to account. And here's the thing. I don't blame Donald Trump as much as I blame the people around him and what you would term the deep state. So
John Bolton.
John Bolton and all these neo-libcons who are just warmongers and just wanting a war in Syria. Like, they desperately want a war in Syria. And, you know, Donald Trump wants to bring him out, and then all of a sudden there's this chemical weapons of mass destruction attack, which is apparently, was it Cylon gas? Or what was it? What's the actual gas? Chlorine. No. So what did they say that it was? What did they actually say the gas was?
Oh, they said it was chlorine. Sarin was used in 2003, 2013. Okay.
They said that. Okay. But they said it was chlorine gas. And that's the thing. It's like so they did actually admit that it was chlorine gas. But what they should have also said is that you can go down to the local shop, buy a bunch of chlorine, and make chlorine gas in your bath and in your sink. So it's like pretty much. So the idea that, you know, that they had solid evidence that Bashar al-Assad is the one who committed this attack, it's complete nonsense. They don't have evidence. If they did have evidence for it, how about you show us? Show us the evidence that he did it, so you can justify these attacks. Because I don't see it. I think it's all a ploy. I think the deep state, we'll call it that. Even though it's Alex Jones style, we'll call it the deep state, guys. It's a deep state. They're making the frogs gay. Yeah, we'll call it that. I think they're just trying to get the US into a ground war into Syria, because ultimately, well, I reckon it's the military-industrial complex. I reckon, like, because they make money selling bombs, they want to bomb the crap out of a country, and Syria seems like a good target for whatever reason. So what do you guys think about that?
Go Dave first.
You go, LD. I'm still thinking.
Oh, okay. Well, my thoughts are, first of all, the same thing that Maddie said, and that's show us your evidence that this gas attack happened. The reason I think that we should hold Trump a little bit more accountable, yes, he has advisors, he has all these different people, but I mean, he's still like leader of the free world. He still made the decision, and if you look through his tweets in 2013 or so, he said, you know, if you go to war with Syria, or if you do anything to Syria, it means the end for us, or something to that effect. And he's going against his own words. And yes, we're all hypocrites sometimes. We all go against what we say sometimes. And I'm sure someone must have twisted his arm in some capacity. But I mean, you know, Barack Obama had Libya. He did the whole Libya thing and said, oh, you know, we need to help civilians. You know, we're doing it to help the civilians. And Trump's reasoning is helping the civilians. It's premeditated. There are certainly they've planned this ahead of time, and they're claiming a gas reason. I don't know. It's frustrating. I find it frustrating because I'm still a Trump, not a loyalist, but I'm still on Trump in Trump's corner for the most part. I still think he's well intentioned, but I just think this is really, really bad. I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think it's going to help anything. And if he's worried about civilians, why isn't he worried about the sex slave trade in Libya? Why isn't he worried about white South African farmers? Why Syria? Why specifically Syria? What does that mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's something more going on, and we're not being told. And there's definitely something more going on.
It's got a lot more to do with Russia than anything else. It's a lot of it's a little bit of a throwback to the Cold War of the 60s and the 70s.
But Trump and Putin don't. The countries are settled with each other. They're not. There's no Cold War, so to speak of.
Yeah, well, it is a little bit of a cold. Like I said, it's a Cold War throwback. It's a little bit of a geopolitical dick-wagging contest, as far as I can tell. I mean, Syria is an ally to Russia, and Russia's got nuclear weapons, and it's like, I think
didn't America destroy Syria? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Didn't America destroy Syria?
Not destroy, but like everything that America has put its hand in has made things somewhat worse. You think of Iran. You think when the Shah was overthrown, that was I forgot which, but Gerald Ford. That they overthrew the Shah, and then Ayatollah Khomeini takes over, and then Iran is like. It was once a booming economy, and then it becomes what it is. It was the same thing with Assad. Assad's father was a pretty, he kept out all the radical Islamists, and then it became a French mandate, and then now it's what it is. Like, I think
someone in chat. Someone in chat.
I'm not looking at the chat.
Good. You're learning your lesson from last time.
Yes, I did it for your benefit, you little shit.
You just swear in my live stream. That's not very Christian of you.
Sorry, princess.
She just called me princess.
I just do it all the time.
It's a funny way of saying I love you. So someone in chat.
Deluded.
What was it? What was that? You got a bit of a cough there. I think you should probably go and get that checked out.
What's happening in the live?
What's happening? Yeah, can I get to the chat, please? Dear Elopina, the opinion of the day in Spanish.
That's right.
So someone's just mentioned the reason is the Qatari gas pipeline. Syria and Russia don't want it, and I remember reading something about a gas pipeline that Obama was proposing. I mean, it seems like a reason that it could be. I mean, I'd have to look into it a little bit more. And someone else mentioned that America want Russia out of the Middle East, which would fit that, and that does actually make sense. That they want Russia out of the Middle East. See, here's the thing. I think that we should all just get out of the Middle East. I mean, I know they've got oil, but there's plenty of oil elsewhere. America's self-sufficient on oil. And remember, me and Dave were sort of mentioning this in the at the footy yesterday when one team just couldn't do anything wrong and the other team just couldn't do anything right. We just sort of mentioned that.
Sorry, what's that, Matty? You're breaking up.
Just like Melbourne's backline, hey?
I think they're jamming us.
I'll say it again, just like Melbourne's backline.
When I say nuke Melbourne, yesterday isn't what I had in mind.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, there's a very special guest in the chat as well. I'll mention her soon. Yeah, so we were mentioning yesterday that if they really wanted to do something, they should just go and oust Maduro from Venezuela. Not that here's the thing: I don't support the intervention of sovereign nations, right? I don't support the intervention of within the local politics of sovereign nations and violently ousting dictators. But here's the thing: if they have to do it, like if the deep state are just desperate to go and take over a nation, why don't you go and take Maduro out of Venezuela? Because then you might actually do some good. It might actually do something good because the guy is a genuine criminal who's destroying his nation through socialism.
That's the point.
Maybe they could actually set up a free market economy there. I mean, as long as they just took out him and the ruling party, it wouldn't be too bad. As I said, ideally they just wouldn't do anything. They just back out and Trump would do what he said that he wanted to do and get America out of foreign wars that is. But as I said, like if they simply have to, if it's like a big wheel and they have to throw the double out and say, look, we have to intervene in one country, and if we don't, then we're all going to blow up and die, then why wouldn't they pick Venezuela?
That's my point.
There's so much oil there.
It would be worth it just to hear the communists bitch and moan about it for another 30 years.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be
very true. But that's what I'm saying. I think it's absolutely they had it planned, and then he told us later. Like he planned to do something in Syria, or whether it was him or the puppeteer, something was planned ahead of time, and then he's like, okay, we have to go to Syria. Do you guys believe that there's gas, out of curiosity? Because there's like these people called the white helmets that save people, but then there's also proof that those white helmet people are actually terrorists and that it's all staged. What do you guys think?
I find it very suspicious that they had cameras and hoses like right on cue.
Yeah, and that they're saving all these children. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm wearing a tinfoil hat when I say that, but it is very convenient.
Yeah.
There have been a few sort of very convenient things. It's like they grab the child and then there was actually I don't know I can't remember the specifics of it, but we had an article on XYZ where it talked about how it's like they all focused on this one child and they took these photos, and these photos were used out of context. They're using children for their political gain. So that's why I don't know. I believe that there's an historical precedent for that sort of thing. It's that washed up kid on the shores of the Mediterranean.
Was that real though? Was that washed up kid real? I think that was real. I don't think
that was real. Yeah. Mind you, like his parents and his grandparents took a leaky boat over to Europe so that they could get dental care. But that's a whole nother story. I do find that suspicious.
It is.
I don't know. It's suspicious, but I don't know.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist believer, but I do see a lot of evidence that supports. There are photos, in fact, about where you see these people saving with the white helmets, and then at the same time, you see them in terrorist training camps. So there's a ploy there. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll just pause you there for 1 second. We have a very special guest in chat. Everyone say hello to Neeks the pig, and you can see that she's left the chat saying "Woohoo, go Hawks." Neeks the pig is a star of my channel, and her name is in the chat, Neeks the pig. Now,
so we've got Neeks the pig in the chat, and we've got Short Bus Matty on your end,
and Short Bus Matty. We've got Neeks the pig and Short Bus Matty. The thing is, Neeks didn't actually realize that I changed her account name to Neeks the Pig when she asked me to set her channel up today, because she needed a channel for to go and make chats in. So she just got a bit of a shock to find out that her name was Neeks the Pig. Sorry, I had to mention that because it's really funny to me. There he is. There she is. Hi, pigs. Hi, Neeks the Pig. She said something in chat. She's a famous person in chat here. So now that I was there we go. Everyone's saying hi, Neeks. So I'll just where was it? So Stephen Backman sort of mentioned they didn't even hit the chemical weapons in Syria. No, I don't believe there was gas. It was staged. Do you know what? I know I'm going to put we'll pretend this is a tinfoil hat right now. I would not be surprised at all if it was all completely staged. If it was all just for show, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're just going, you know what, we need to put a show on for these people and set off some bombs and all that kind of thing, but we're not actually going to hurt anyone, and we're not actually going to do anything meaningful. Thing is, I heard reports that they did actually kill civilians, so. Yeah, it's not really much of it. It's a pretty steep price to pay to make a bit of a show. Someone also mentioned that I can't remember where it is. Where is it? If Qatar is selling gas to Europe, It will cripple the Russian economy. Russia can't allow it. America is backing Qatar is dangerously stupid. If that's true, I don't know if that's true because I haven't done the research myself, so I can't act as an authority on that. But if that's true, then it does actually make sense. You're putting something on the camera there, El Dyer.
Yeah,
those images are exactly what I just said. These are the white helmets. They are the scum that we support in Syria. So on one side, you'll see the white helmets, and then on the other side, you'll see them as terrorists. So there's definitely validity to this argument. And why the hell are we going into war? Whatever the word is, strike. It's not a war, but why are we interfering with Syria? Just leave it alone.
Pull it back from the thing a little bit and start talking.
Oh, we'll just look at the image. But yeah,
it's a bit blurry.
I'll send it to you so that you can maybe add it somehow in the description box or something. Or I'll give it to you, Dave, if you want to write an article on it or something. I don't know. But anyway,
I think we've had a couple already, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely validity to the argument. So I don't know what Trump is doing. I hope he doesn't divide the right. A lot of people saying this will divide the right, but I think people on the right are much smarter than people on the left. We won't self-implode the way the left has.
Someone else just said that UAE backed by the USA want the pipe through Syria. Russia doesn't want it. Pretty simple. Again, I'd love to double check that, but it does make sense because often wars like this, or often these regional conflicts have of this regards. When you've got like USA and these big nations in there, it comes down to resources. It comes down to who gets to sell what or who gets what. There are issues. Yeah, that's the thing. When will people learn their lesson? And it's like
George W. Bush, the one before did Vietnam. Like, just stop.
To be honest, I'm always a little wary of like resources arguments when it comes to the Middle East. Like Sudan has plenty of oil, and there was never a real intervention.
Well, they're best friends, aren't they?
Sudan
and America, they are aligned. There's nothing going on politically. I mean,
but we're talking about a region which is like interminably unstable, and it's awash with resources. The question that we're asking now is like, now that the US is becoming energy independent, thanks to fracking, why are we getting involved in the Middle East at all? And that's the big one for all of us.
I agree
I'm not particularly worried about World War III. Like Maddie, you said that Russia blinked, but
not yet
anyway. Like nuclear deterrence, it did work during the Cold War, and it's working again here. It acts as a kind of it sort of just tempers the level that big powers are going to go to, like when they have a conflict. It just means that they know there's only so far that they can push. But yeah, the big thing for me is just there's no need for us to be in the Middle East, and there's no need for us to really have people in our countries from the Middle East either. Like you can see in Britain, like recently there were Kurds who were calling for intervention in Turkey over the treatment of Kurds. And so like as we have more and more people from the Middle East, we're actually going to be kept drawn into the Middle East, which is kind of ironic because like they're always complaining about intervention, but they're calling us to intervene as well. So that's the big issue for me. And I just think that like when you look at the history of Islam, Islam was an existential threat to Europe for a good 1,300 years. And we had maybe 100, 150 years where it wasn't, where we had the upper hand. And now we're, after fighting them off for centuries, for over a millennia, we're basically letting a foreign army into our countries. And this foreign army is from like an enemy that was our existential enemy for over 1,000 years. And we're going in and we're wasting our money, and we're wasting out the lives of our best men in there. And at the same time, we're just opening our borders to them at the same time. Like to me, I'm like, well, I would love to just see no contact. I would love to see, okay, you want the Middle East? You have the Middle East. We're not going to get involved at all, but leave.
Yeah, so
to me, it seems like a grand deal. It's a grand bargain. It's like, okay, we're not going to be involved in the Middle East anymore. We're not going to do anything to, like what you say, Smith. Yeah, but we don't want you either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a topic that I'm really glad that World War III probably isn't going to start. But I'll admit I was worried. Like I was actually worried that something major could happen. I really don't. Major could happen, yeah. Well, something major still could happen. I just hopefully people sort of see sense, because we still have mutually assured destruction, and we're probably being saved by mutually assured destruction at the moment. I had someone try and tell me that China was going to make a move, and it was all about Chinese power, and China were behind the manipulating everything from behind the scenes. Fine. No, I don't believe that at all. I think China's got its own internal problems that it's a little bit more concerned about now, like the fact that they've got a dictator for life. Although, here's the thing. I saw some fantastic Chinese propaganda, state-funded Chinese propaganda the other day, and they're talking about deregulating the economy and cutting regulations, like I just said, and cutting taxes and really making it a free market economy and all that kind of thing. So here's the thing: if this dictator for life turns around and just turns it into a fully fledged free market capitalist system, where there's basically no regulations and free trade and all that kind of thing, China could actually end up being a really good country, like within the next 50 years. It'll
probably be the next superpower. I mean, it is already one of the biggest superpowers.
Yeah, you couldn't really call it a superpower. It's got the second biggest economy in the world, but I mean, a superpower has got its own definition. I mean, it's got a specific definition, and like I think you need to be a super. You have to. It's like global reach and basically what America is. I mean, I'd have to get the specific definition.
Yeah,
I learned about it like 10 years ago.
Russia was once upon a time considered a superpower. Yeah. I don't know if it still is. Yeah. Israel was. No, I don't think so. Israel was.
No, Israel's not a superpower.
Was.
America
was.
Yeah. Basically, America can project
Colombia.
America can project its power to any point on the planet. And at the moment, it's the only power that can do that. Aircraft carriers have a lot to do with that. China, it either has zero or none, and America has about a dozen.
Someone also just mentioned something that I actually had forgotten about as well, which really is an important point. Gary just mentioned that one problem we have is that the Suez Canal is in the Gulf, which here's the thing: Egypt controlled the Suez Canal. And then Dickface Obama has come in and basically let the Muslim Brotherhood take over Egypt, like the complete communist idiot that he was, and still is. And so he sort of made the situation a lot worse in that regards.
Obama made everything worse.
Obama did make everything worse. I mean, the Suez Canal. I mean, yeah, okay. So I mean, that if we didn't have the Suez Canal, it would stop a lot of shipping through there. I think because America is such a big trading partner to us, America and China are our biggest trading partners. It wouldn't affect us too much. I mean, it would extend trade into Europe for us by a fair bit, but I mean, you're doing that instead of doing that. So it would add it does add quite a bit of time to that. I think the people that it affects, it's like trade between Europe and South Asia, and it would affect Europe and South Asia, though, like trading partners are within there a lot more. But it is certainly a strategic thing it certainly is a strategic shipping point that needs to be discussed. But as people were mentioning earlier, I believe it's a little bit more to do with this gas pipeline and just regional power in the area. But I'm with you, David, mate. I think we just need to get out of there. Like, we just need to get out of the Middle East. We've got America has oil self-sufficiency, and Canada is producing heaps of oil. And we've got
all the uranium. We've got so much uranium.
We've got the world's biggest uranium deposit, and for some reason we don't use it because greenies or some stupid nonsense like that. We have tons of coal. We have coal for thousands of years. We've got uranium for thousands of years, if not more. We've got we've got.
Because it will hurt the environment. It will hurt the trees.
Oh, well, that's the thing. Yeah, it would hurt. It would make the trees radioactive. Why don't you go and put the radioactive material out in the desert? Shut up, racist. You're a racist. You're a racist
towards the land.
Yeah, you're a racist towards the land. You want to store uranium safely underground in the desert. You racist. How could you do that?
I want to store uranium. I want to store uranium in the Australian desert so we can see 10-meter high kangaroos.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Superpowered kangaroos.
Can you imagine the size of their testicles? They're already huge. Like,
I haven't really paid attention to kangaroo testicles.
Blokes tend to notice these things.
Fair enough.
I reckon blokes would still go a punch on with a kangaroo though.
Well, so one bloke actually did, didn't he? Well, remember that video that went viral
because of his dog, right?
Yeah, he saved his dog, and animal activists were like giving him a hard time about it.
Well, he probably shouldn't have kept punching the thing. Like, he didn't have to keep punching.
He didn't have to punch. Well, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I wasn't. Yeah. For me, it was just a cool video where a guy punched a kangaroo.
It was interesting. It was definitely.
Yeah. It was very Australian. It was about as Australian as it gets.
Australia. Yeah.
Would you please make me a Vegemite sandwich?
Would you make a good Vegemite sandwich, do you, Elder?
I use a lot of butter on toast until it's melted, and then I put tiny bits of Vegemite on it, and then that's how
David, she agrees with me. Tiny bits of Vegemite. Remember we had that debate about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah,
you said
David.
You cake it on. Yeah. You said you cake it on.
Both of you, the other side of the wall.
No, democracy is clearly working right now. Democracy no longer fails. Little bits of Vegemite when you can add butter as well.
I don't like it in an extreme. Ugh.
You guys are savages.
All right. Well, I think we've done our dash on the Syria topic. Let's move on to
the high chair.
Let's move on to Facebook. Let's move on to Zuckerberg under oath
because
I really dislike Mark Zuckerberg with a deep passion. I'm not going to say I hate the guy because I don't hate people. I think people are misled.
Oh, that's so Christian of you. Aren't you a good boy?
It's also very... You're the princess, you frog.
You could call me frog.
You're a frog. Only if you get kissed, you turn into a mole.
An hour and a half. So I'm here for an hour and a half. An hour and a half tonight.
I'd rather be called a cat than a frog.
You're a cat. You're a cat girl. Maybe you should start your colony now.
I love kitties.
I'm actually a dog person myself. Anyway, we were talking about
Zuckerberg and his high chair.
We were going to talk about Zuckerberg and his high chair. I don't know if it was actually a high chair. I think it was just a really big cushion that was there, and it would have been there anyway. But it made for a really funny picture. It did actually make for an excellent picture. I watched a lot of his testimony. This guy, I mean, he wasn't under oath. He wasn't under oath, which is something that he should have been under oath. Congress, the US Congress, really show that they don't understand how tech works. They didn't really ask enough about algorithms and censorship and all that. They did ask a few. Ted Cruz asked,
great. Yeah, Ted Cruz was amazing.
Ted Cruz asked a good question. A couple of people asked a good question. Like one guy asked about bias and all that kind of stuff, but then he said, "Oh, but Facebook's doing a great job." And it's like, don't say that. Like, you know, you're an idiot. You don't need to say that kind of thing. Zuckerberg's probably a big donor to his campaign or something like that. But I don't know. I'm just speculating. So Senator Ted Cruz asked some questions, and I mean, the answers that Mark Zuckerberg gave were just ridiculous. Like, Ted Cruz has asked about, okay, what about, you talking about bias and, we're worried about da-da-da-da-da, these questions. And Mark Zuckerberg comes back and says, in his voice, I'm sure we all agree that terrorist content shouldn't be allowed on the platform, da-da-da-da-da-da, and where blah, 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 blah. Goes off into the spiel, and it's like, that's... would you call that a straw man? Like, he wasn't asking you whether you were getting rid of violence. Like, okay, fair enough. Get rid of terrorist content. Okay, let's agree that terrorist content is not okay for any kind of social media. Let's agree on that. Yeah. But that's not what he was asking. He was asking
a direct question, and he kept deflecting.
And he kept deflecting. He kept deflecting, saying, "Oh, we want a safe guideline. We're a platform for all ideas. We just want it to be a safe place." But that safe place means ideas that we don't like taken off. And you heard that like Diamond and Silk were banned.
Oh, they're such adorable little ladies.
But they then Facebook come out and said, "Oh yeah, we actually admitted that was a mistake, like just conveniently, just for them." But yeah, okay, now go and restore all the other accounts that you've cut off for no good reason. Yeah. I didn't believe a thing. I didn't believe a word he said. I thought I looked at him and my lack of respect for the guy just grew even more. I had no respect for him anyway, so I don't know how I could have any less respect for the guy. But yeah, I think hopefully people sort of wake up to how bad the guy really is, because he's horrendous. He's a horrendous individual.
He couldn't even say we are a neutral platform. I
know. He couldn't say that. He couldn't. Dave, do you want to have any input, or what about you, D? Do you want to have a full answer?
No, let Dave go. Let Dave go.
Yeah, I haven't seen the cross-examination. I've seen.
Oh well, then you can't respond.
I've seen Ted Cruz cross-examine people before, and I wouldn't want to be on the end of it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, what is going on in the social media world doesn't surprise me at all, because the Brexit victory and the Trump victory, the left realized that their creations, which until that time had been used, that's all right. Until that time, their creations, like the social media, YouTube, Twitter, they had been used to spread leftist propaganda. And then the right, we got onto it late, but we got onto it, and we won the internet. And so now, like, this is the fallout from Brexit. This is the fallout from Trump. The left are trying to paint it as though there's Facebook is actually sort of biased to the right in many ways. They try to talk about this whole fake news rubbish, but like we like on XYZ, like we've got 10,000 subscribers, and we've faced ban after ban after suspension after suspension. We've had XYZ members who've just been basically completely chased off off Facebook. And our real lived experience is that Facebook is just biased against the right. And
they are.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You continue. I'll add later.
Yeah. Basically, we turned their creation against them, and so now it's all falling apart, and it's beautiful to watch.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's the thing. We've won the internet, and now Facebook are so desperate to control the narrative on their site that for some reason they're willing to destroy it in order to prove a point. I don't understand what their end goal is there. Like, piss off half your customer base so they all leave somewhere else, and then when it gets really when it gets boring for the lefties on Facebook and no one uses it anymore, what are they going to do? They're going to go over to the other side as well, and Facebook will die. See, I'm still split between whether it's going to go full MySpace mode or slowly melt away. I told you, I think I sent you a text. You didn't respond, like you hardly ever do to your texts. But I sent you a text about getting onto Gab and Minds and really pushing those as much as possible. And everyone who's listening, make sure you're following XYZ on Gab and Minds. I mean, you can still go to Facebook if you want, but
I didn't have you guys on Minds. I should add you.
Yeah, I mean, it's only just starting out on Minds and Gab, and I mean, you're on Twitter as well, which is good. So you're just spreading out on different social media platforms and making sure people sort of know where you are and really expanding the group. And making sure when you are putting content up on those three platforms, because they don't really have the groups established yet, like Facebook have. I mean, it's easy it's always great with Facebook to share into groups and things, but you can't do that quite yet on the other three, because it's not really on Twitter and Minds. There's groups on Minds, but they're sort of low. Like, there's not that many. The membership isn't very high just yet. And Gab's about to get groups.
There's not much on Mind just yet.
Yeah.
Minds seems to be. Yeah. Is Gab going off compared to Minds? That's the impression that I get.
Yeah, Gab's got a lot more interaction. I found there's a lot more reposts, a lot more. I get a lot more notifications from
Gab is more of a Twitter. Minds is more of a Facebook / YouTube.
Yeah, Minds is a lot more of a YouTube, Facebook replacement. So I think as people sort of get off Facebook, they'll slowly go to Minds.
Agree.
Because it's people are still using Facebook as a messenger app, and that's all people really use it for these days, just as a messenger app to keep people connected.
Yeah.
The thing is, What really annoyed me.
Facebook and still have Messenger. Sorry.
Well, yeah, that too. But I mean, what was the worst thing about these Facebook bans? And like, you know, when you put up an opinion, like when I said that there were only 2 genders and I got 30-day ban, and when I said that Sadiq Khan was the enemy of the state, I didn't even call him a Canute. I just said he was an enemy. I just said Sadiq Khan is an enemy of the West, and they gave me a 30-day ban.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
What would get me with what would get me with Facebook is that we would share into these groups and we would have views. Like sometimes we would get 10,000 eyes on them, 20,000, 30, 40,000 people would see this stuff, thanks to the sharing in all the groups. And then they really cut down on that and they suspended us for sharing in groups. And like, if you get suspended for sharing in a group, everything that you've shared in a group becomes invisible. So it really cuts down on your visibility on Facebook, and it cuts down on views to the XYZ. But then the instant later, I would check out my newsfeed and I would see an ad from Facebook saying, spend $14 and you can get 1,000 views.
I know
for this post.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
I've never seen that.
Yeah. And it's just ridiculous. I was going to mention as well that when you get these 30-day bans, then they cut off your access to the Messenger app, which is insidious. It's just the most unethical behavior imaginable, especially considering they are banning people based on political opinion. And as Ted Cruz asked them, are you aware of any left-wing pages and sites that have been banned? And he just couldn't answer. And the reason he couldn't answer is because there aren't any. There are no left-wing pages getting banned for their opinions. It's only conservative, libertarian side. It's only non-left pages that are getting banned. So I really, really, really want Congress in America or someone in America to say, Facebook, you have lost Section 32 immunity from the Communications Decency Act. I want them to lose immunity and get sued out of it, and get sued out of existence, because all you need to do once they lose immunity is get on there, start posting defamation, like start defaming a whole bunch of people, and then get them to sue Facebook, because they'd be finished. They'd be absolutely finished, because unless they get rid of everything that's defamation, then they're liable for anything that gets published on there. I reckon if someone sued them, they'd be very, very close to losing as well. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer though, but they are obviously moderating their pages in a way that dictates what content can and cannot be placed on there based on political opinion. And I think all you'd have to do is argue that, show that, get all the evidence in Discovery, because you could go to Discovery, you could probably get all the evidence you needed. I would imagine you could get quite a lot. I mean, don't quote me on this again. I'm not a lawyer, but maybe we should get a lawyer on to answer all these questions. But I reckon if you could do that, if you were able to get all the evidence, you could probably build a case to show that they were moderating based on political opinion, which means they should lose their immunity under Section 230, which means they'd be liable for everything that gets posted on there, which means, as I said, you start posting defamation, Facebook have to compensate you for that, which would be amazing. And terrorists have Facebook. Exactly.
And Blair Cottrell loses his Facebook, and he's not even a terrorist.
Did he lose his Facebook, did he?
Yeah. This is a well-known fact. Yeah. He has a new one now, but prior to the new one, the reason he has Twitter, the reason he has an Instagram is because Facebook refused to allow him to have a platform. Every single time Blair Cottrell decides to put one up, he's immediately banned. Yes, the ISIS has Facebook.
That's just ridiculous. It
makes no sense. Yeah. None whatsoever.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It does
make sense in a leftist way. But what do you mean, Dave, when you say that?
Well, I just think of, there was that hot mic conversation between Angela Merkel and Mark Zuckerberg a few years ago, where she asked Mark Zuckerberg, what are you doing about people talking about the migrant crisis on Facebook? And Mark Zuckerberg said to her, we're working on it. I just find it's a real sign of just how much power Mark Zuckerberg had. Well, maybe not has anymore, but had.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like his platform, what was going on in his platform was influencing the course of political elections. And when we think about it, it's actually influencing the course of history. Like what's going on right now, the culture war that's going on right now will determine what our countries look like in 10, 20 years' time.
Yeah.
And the left have one vision of it, and we have another. And it is beautifully ironic because Mark Zuckerberg, I think he's going to be like a sacrificial lamb of the left. Like, he created the platform which worked really well for them, and then it started working against them. So they're cutting him loose. The right, we have no love for him because of the bias that Facebook have shown towards us. So it's. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg. I beg your pardon.
It's funny that we are such a big us now. Like,
yeah,
this wouldn't have happened if they didn't like start this crap.
Well, and it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't created a platform which allowed all the lone wolf conservatives to actually talk to each other and realize that they're not
That's
crazy.
Right.
Yeah,
and to realize that we are actually the silent majority, even if you don't. You know, the thing is, I mean, you can use the catch-all phrase of conservative, but it's like I like to call it. It's the conservative, libertarian, classically liberal free thinkers who think for themselves and don't buy the mainstream leftist narrative. And you're right. It's like they created the, you know, what would you say? Like, they created the sword that's going to eventually destroy them. They created the tools that are going to destroy them, and they're starting to realize this, so they're trying to censor. The thing is, it's like Pandora's box is already opened. It's too late. Like, people have started talking. People are already communicating. You censor Facebook, you kill Facebook, everyone's just going to go to Minds and Gab, or even Twitter now. Like, Twitter's less censored than Facebook, ironically. Like, how ridiculous is that?
But I do know people who have gotten blocked for like 7 days and stuff like that. It does still happen, particularly if you're conservative. But they seem to be letting up on conservatives lately. Do you think that?
Well, I was banned for 7 days for what was essentially nothing, and then I appealed it.
What did you do?
I was trolling people on another account. I was trolling people.
You're working your way through getting like blocked by like every major Australia.
I've got 4 famous blocks that I know of. 4 famous people have blocked me.
And we've both been blocked by Christy Winters.
Oh yeah, and Christy Winters as well. That's the 5th. I forgot about that one.
But you and I share that as a mutual block.
She blocks everyone though. That doesn't count.
Yeah. And Steve Shives. I was blocked by him.
Steve Shives. Oh yeah, of course. So silly. Like the guy
He's
from
such
Gab.
a little girl. He's such a.
Have you seen the video that Bearing made him, where he's got the green screen in the background and Bearing puts guys dancing in their underwear around him?
The one where chicks with dicks. Chicks with dicks. Yeah.
It's how the XYZ got famous on Facebook.
Ah, well done.
Do you know? Sorry. It's
your channel.
You're allowed to talk though. You don't have to just sit there in the kitchen making food all day. Go. You're an individual when we respect you as an individual. Sometimes.
Hurry up! What were you gonna say?
Someone today, I was in someone responded to something that I said on Twitter. I think, what was it about? I think it might have been about taking in refugees. And he said, oh, so we should only take in European refugees now, huh?
Sounds good to me.
Typical left-wing crap. And I said, yeah, well, I think we should take in refugees that are more likely to fit into our culture, because it's going to be better for us, and we can decide who comes into our country because it's our damn country. And then do you know what he says to me? He says, oh, I just had a look at your details and you're associated with the XYZ. That makes you a racist.
Oh my gosh!
So you are like, I got a screenshot of it. That's content.
That's funny.
That counts as content.
That's hilarious.
Even if they don't block, even if they just mute, if they call you racist and then mute you, that counts as content in my book.
I was called racist, and I'm like, I'm a mutt from 2 separate countries living in Australia. You really want to call me a racist? They don't even know why. They just say it because they have no comeback. It's just the easiest thing to say.
Well, you're certainly a mutt. At least you admit that.
Yes, I'm mixed. That's what I meant, you wanker.
Isn't it mongrel?
Whatever, mongrel. It means the same thing.
Oh,
I was gonna say before, Dave, I don't know whether you realized, but I was blocked by Jessica Rowe from the Half-Old Feminist from Channel 10.
No way.
I was so happy. I was so excited. Like, literally, I trolled her, but it wasn't a mean troll. It was like a very respectful troll. I just said, "Don't you think Milo Yiannopoulos is awesome?" That's all I
wrote. She blocked you.
She blocked me. The Half-Old Feminist blocked me. Yes, thank you. I was so proud of myself. I posted it up immediately when I realized it. I'm like, guess who blocked me? Milo Yiannopoulos, you'll be so proud of me.
Respect.
The guy Andrew Torber from Gab said that Gab doesn't have a block button because that gives the enemy content. But I'm like, come on, you got to have a block button because I want content. It's amazing. And it's the left that do the most blocking. So it's like, you just muting is fine. You got to let the lefties have a block. That way that we can see the block and we can do a big screenshot and we can put it in a little collection folder. Yeah, I never block.
I block on Facebook because I don't want friend requests from certain kinds of people, especially now that I have a public page and I get all these people who follow the Prophet. I get all these Muslims following me and I don't know why they're doing it, and I know that it's suspicious, so I block them. But otherwise, I don't block on Twitter. On Facebook, I do. I think it's different, slightly different.
Well, you don't block on Twitter because it says you have been blocked, but you can block on Facebook because if you block someone on Facebook, you just don't appear to them at all. Like they can't find you if they search for you. So it's not.
No, but I'm saying in general, I've never blocked anyone on Twitter. Like I've never done it first.
Have you ever muted anyone?
No.
Oh, really? You've never even muted anyone?
No, I don't. I don't see the need to because I mean, muting is a little different, but I want the even on YouTube, like I got banned off YouTube. I can't do my live streaming for 3 months because of that one video that I made that did really well. But I let people have the conversations that they wanted, like, and they were saying really, really heavy, intense, bad things.
Yeah, I like to mute people. I think it's funny. I think muting's hilarious, especially if you've got a good reason to mute. Like, yeah. If they're just abusing you and they're just giving you nonsense, like if they're just yelling crap and giving you abuse, it's like, oh, I'll just mute you, whatever. Or if it's like if you're trying to debate them or if you're trying to get something out of them, eventually you get them invested, and they're like, you know what, I'm giving you a chance. See ya. Yeah. And it's just like, and then you just walk away, and it's like you sort of leave them with their dicks in their hands.
Yeah.
And I get a bit bored as well. I'm just like, you know what? I just don't like this person's annoying me. I'm getting a bit bored responding saying the same thing over and over again because lefties tend to do that. Like they're like, you say something to them and then they'll come back with one straw man and then you'll be like, well, that's a straw man because this is crap. And then they'll be like, yeah, but this. And you'll be like, but I already mentioned that like 5 tweets ago. It's like, why are you repeating yourself? Like, what are you talking about? This is you're being dumb. So then I just get bored and I mute them. That way that they text you. Do you know what the funniest thing to do is? I had this today with this guy that I muted. He was actually in conversation with other people and I was like trolling him by responding to other people. So I couldn't see what he was saying, but he could see what I was saying. And then I found out later that he blocked me and he got me content, which was fantastic. But I really enjoy the trolling for some reason. I don't know. It's just really funny to me.
But we always end up talking about trolling. Everyone clearly loves it. It's the funnest thing.
Yeah, troll. So, I mean, it's funny that we got onto trolling while we're talking about Facebook, who obviously
Zuckerberg,
Facebook has nothing to add to the world right now. I think Facebook is a net negative to the world. Facebook is no longer a platform that should have anybody's custom. Nobody should be using Facebook if they can avoid it. And the thing is, you can avoid it because I find that you can contact people that really matter in other ways. So you can contact via email if you've got their phone number. If you haven't got someone's phone number, then you really don't need to be contacting them, in my opinion. If you don't have their phone number or their email address, it's not 100% necessary that you're going to contact them and you can always find them in other ways if you really, really need to, especially if they're on Facebook.
It's good for photos. Like it's good, like when you're overseas and you don't have a hard drive with you overseas, or you're not traveling with a hard drive, to just put all your photos on an album. Like that's what I used to use Facebook for, to upload like a shitload of photos.
Talking about photos, whenever we've doxed members of Socialist Alternative and Socialist Alliance, it's very easy to go to their Facebook page and find their photos there. So it is very handy for that reason.
Oh, they're exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's good for that sense. I don't know how long people are going to keep putting all their personal information up on Facebook.
It's not going to be much longer, yeah.
Yeah, people sort of realise it's not a good idea.
I don't tell people where I work. Like, there's like old places that I work there, but not like anything new.
So yeah, it's lovely to see Facebook die. I'm very, very happy.
It's not dying.
Well, hopefully
it's going to be a slow death, I've got to say.
Yeah.
It's good to have parachutes, but I think it's going to be a slow death.
Yeah, I think
it'll be a slow death. I agree.
It'll be slow. It'll be like that old saying, like that old saying, how did you go from being so rich to so poor? And he said, well, first it was slowly, and then it was very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be something like that. It'll be slow, so slow, and then eventually we'll just be like, wait, you still use Facebook? I've started doing that from now on. Like when someone says they use Facebook, I'm like, what? You still use Facebook? Like, is there something wrong with you? Like, yeah, I do it. Yeah. Because I really dislike Facebook with such an immense passion because of how censorious they are and how sinful Mark Zuckerberg is. I really don't like the platform. So I'm doing everything I humanly can to bring that down as quickly as possible. And I'm just one cog in a very, very great work of people who dislike Facebook. But, you know, if everyone makes a little bit of a change, then that's a big change in my book.
Facebook will go the way of MySpace.
Oh, yeah. It'll go. Did you see the thumbnail of my Facebook video?
I was looking at Stephen Buckman's comment. The thumbnail, yeah, I saw your thumbnail.
Yeah, did you see it was like rest in peace and then MySpace was actually, MySpace was behind it on the grave behind it.
It's the perfect parallel.
Yeah. Did you see the Bones hand though?
I saw your video, actually, the whole thing. I saw the whole video. That one was a very good video. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like my next one, the one that we were talking about that I was a little concerned about copyright is one on weapons of... Sorry?
You didn't end up showing me the thing you were worried about. You said you were going to show me and you didn't show that bit to me.
Well, I was a little worried about fair. I'm pretty sure it's fair use though, because I'm using so many different sources and I'm only using the video, not the audio from the video.
But prior to going live, you said you were going to show me prior to double check that.
I can show you. I can show you after. I think
sure.
What I might do is I think I'll upload it and you can have a look at it. But I'm pretty sure it's okay.
I'm sure you're fine.
Because I mean, there's as long as you're not affecting anyone financially by using copyrighted material, you're okay. And I'm not affecting anyone financially. I'm not taking views away from someone else that they otherwise would have gotten.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that counts as fair use. I'm really worried about this kind of thing because it's important to take care when it comes to copyright. Yeah, copyright's a little bit of a boring topic for a live stream. So how about we move on to the last topic, the one that came up today, which came up 2 hours ago, and that a very, very special topic to talk about because this is something that we were all warning about when we were campaigning on the no side for the gay marriage debate. The one that we all said what was going to happen. And what did we all say was going to happen? As soon as you get gay marriage, you're going to get the trans nonsense. You're going to get trans this, trans that. And guess what the Palaszczuk government tried to do last month while, under the little cover of the Commonwealth Games and all that kind of thing? They've proposed making birth certificates and other legal documents gender neutral.
In our most conservative state. So retarded.
Well, I mean, this the most conservative that actually, they voted in what is obviously a far left Palaszczuk government.
It's a case of the trolls are in. Sorry, the orcs are in the Shire.
Yeah, the orcs are in the Shire. That's that's a very relatively apt description.
No, it's good.
Yeah, but they want so they already proposed it.
It's supposed to be our last bastion. It's supposed to be our last bastion against all of this nonsense. Just like the liberals in the US are taking over Texas.
Look,
by changing the demographics, it's happening in Queensland as well.
The birth certificate isn't a big deal, but what is a big deal is that it will affect freedom of religion and freedom of speech. That's where it's headed next. So this is just a small indicator, a small sign of what's to come, and that's what shits me. That's what scares the hell out of me.
And it's exactly what people who are saying no were talking about.
Scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what we were talking about when we were voting no. It's like, no, don't give them that power. Don't let them redefine something as old as marriage. I mean,
it's like trying to. It's as old as dirt. Marriage is as old as dirt.
Exactly. The idea of marriage law is specifically for the protection of biological children and the biological parents within a family relationship. This is what marriage law is meant to be. This is what it's meant for. So when they've come in and said, oh, well, 2 men can get married and two women can get married, it's like, well, that just completely defeats the purpose of having marriage law in the first place, does it not? Like, there's no point having marriage law now because you've just made it irrelevant. Like, you've just taken away the one reason we've even got it. So marriage law is basically irrelevant. But yeah, it has opened up the door for this push for trans crap.
You two did a very good video on this. You two did a very good chat on this on your channel, and I really liked that discussion.
Us two did
in the lead up to
in the lead up.
I watched that. That was one of the very first videos I saw of you guys.
Yeah, it was.
And I agreed with actually I think I agreed with everything in that video.
And that's the thing. It's like,
shout out to you guys.
Shout out to me on my own channel. Thanks, Eldia Apina. Shout out to Eldia Apina on her channel. Someone go and check out her stuff, and if you like it, sub, and if you really like it, click the bell.
You said to me for like a long time. Thank you.
I think ever.
He's been pretty nasty to me.
Disclaimer.
That was really nice.
Disclaimer: you don't have to like it if you don't want to. It's okay.
Of course. I want you to genuinely like it. Don't sub out of obligation.
Yeah, like the other 90% of her subs.
Yeah. 249.
Yes. So with the gay marriage thing, like we said, is exactly what we predicted, and they tried to do it right away.
It's infuriating.
Oh yeah, it's really irritating, and it's really. Here's the thing: the good thing about it though is that there's been a really big reaction already in Queensland where people have just basically said, "Hell no, that ain't happening." You cannot decide a child's gender at birth. Here's the thing: I was watching an interview on Sky. It was on Peter Cradlin's
show today. It's a sign. You kind of sign.
I was looking at an interview on Peter Cradlin's show today. I can't remember who it was, but this guy was saying, well, recognizing all this blah, 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 it's just the way the world's going. And I have a habit of yelling at the TV when I hear something stupid. He said that, and I've just yelled at the TV, no, it's not the way the world's going. It's the way a few loud left-wing dick faces are trying to push the world. It's not the way the world's going. It's a few leftists in the West want it to go that way because they want to use it to bring about communist utopia. But the rest of the world thinks it's absolutely idiotic. Every reasonable person in the world thinks it's idiotic. You cannot decide a child's gender at birth and go against genetics. There's only two genders, and everything else is some sort of. There's only two genders. Everything else is like either some sort of a mental disorder or some sort of biological disorder. This is the medical facts.
I made a YouTube video about it. There are people who are considered medically mosaic, and like you're a man, but you're born with like a double X and a Y. And that's
exactly.
Like Klinefelter syndrome, but it's exactly as you say, it's a disorder. So those are the people that I would personally give the caveat, yes, you're allowed to change your gender because it is hormonal. It's not your fault. It's chromosomal. But otherwise, it's very few people who are like that. Most of the time, it is a mental thing.
And the thing
it's because they're choosing it. They want to change their body for whatever reason, because it's some sort of dissociative disorder that has been wrongly diagnosed as gender dysphoria.
And that's exactly right. Like, if
I know this subject quite well.
If a doctor says, all right, if they do a DNA test and they find, all right, you've got two X's and a Y chromosome, so this is an actual medically diagnosed issue.
Yes.
Fair enough. All right.
Yes, agree.
Fair enough. You have grounds to change something on the birth certificate there. That's fine.
True.
They haven't talked about that. Like, they haven't talked about doing things like that. They said, oh, well, parents can just say, non-binary on the like they want to do that kind of nonsense.
No,
So, no. You can't do
word.
that unless you get medical evidence to prove that they are what I think it was like back in the day, it was called a hermaphrodite. Unless you have medical evidence to prove that, then they are either a biological man or a biological male or a biological female.
Or Klinefelter syndrome.
This is all client. You know, there's a range of syndromes that can be medically diagnosed, and that's fair enough. You know, we don't want to be putting those people out.
No,
but the thing is,
not.
I would imagine that those people aren't the kind of people that are going to turn around and get offended when you say that there are only two genders. I would imagine that those kind of people will be very well aware that there are only two. Exactly.
If anyone wants to look on my channel, I had a whole discussion about transgender politicization and Hannah Mounsey trying to get into the AFL, who used to be a handball Olympic champion in the men's team. I spoke to an American right-wing tranny. She loves Trump. And anyway, she is just as against it as the way we're talking about it. So trannies themselves are against this.
Someone... I've got to mention this in the chat. Someone's just asked, is there a trans Maddie character in the
I saw that already. I saw that already. That's such a good idea. I wrote best idea.
Steven said trans Maddie character has to be fat. It's all right, the real thing's fat, so we don't need it. We don't need to make the character fat.
You would need to put red lipstick on the tranny version of yourself and like big pink eyeshadow.
Tranny Maddie. How's that?
Make such an ugly woman. You would make the most hideous woman.
I'd make the most hideous woman, you reckon?
Yeah, I do.
You do? You make the most hideous woman?
No, I said you would make an ugly woman. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. That maybe I misheard. I thought you were admitting to something there for a second. Someone said Matty Lena, tranny Matty Lena.
that's just adding INA at the end of your name. I don't see how that works. That's funny.
I don't know how I could do it. I've got to do this now. I've got to do this. I've got to make a tranny Matty character.
That's so funny. You should just call it tranny Maddie. No, don't do that because YouTube might get annoyed if you use the word tranny, actually.
No, I don't think so. Well, Stephen Crowder have got Tranny Bane, which is hilarious.
True, but Stephen Crowder has 1 million subs.
Yeah, I know. It's not it's not inciting hatred towards trans people. I don't hate trans people by any means at all.
No, I know that.
So it's not. It's like I bear no ill will towards trans people whatsoever. My ill will is towards leftist activists using trans people to further a communist agenda. This is my problem. This is a very obvious problem. I think left-wing activists are horrendous in what they do because, trans people, this is a legitimate medical issue, and this is something that they're trying to normalize. I think Dave, you sort of mentioned once that they don't they don't want it to be normalized. They because it's something that they need assistance with. There's something they need help with, and instead the left want to try and normalize it in order to further a left-wing agenda. And it's just like, I think it's actually quite horrendous. And it's like, this is the thing, like whenever the left accuse someone else of something, you can be damn sure that they're almost certainly guilty of that thing.
Oh, definitely.
So I think they are horrendous towards genuinely trans people. So yeah, did you want to mention something about that?
They've used homosexual. They've used homosexual people to further their agenda with homosexual marriage.
Yes.
Even as recent as a decade ago, like gay people didn't want to get married. They wanted the opposite of all of that. And for years, they were talking about destroying marriage. You look at the words of feminists for years, like for decade after decade after decade. They've openly talked about destroying the concept of marriage for a very long time. It's like one of their core principles. And then about a decade ago, everything flipped, and all of a sudden, gay marriage became like the pinnacle of like tolerance and just the next big goal to hit.
Yeah.
So now they've got that, and so they've now that they've achieved that, they're just as usual. They're just going on to the next. They're just going on to the next way of just undermining the whole of society. They're going to create a whole stolen generation as well. Like the way that they're pushing all of this in the schools. Like I think of just like when I was at university, I was exposed to a lot of stupid ideas, like the whole idea of sexuality being on like a scale rather than like, no, you're either straight or you're gay. It's one or the other. And there are a number of stupid things like that, which I had to sort of spend a few years like working my way through. And like that was as a young adult, and like they're pushing this sort of thing on children. It's horrible. There are going to be a lot of angry young men who come out of all of this, and
definitely
just a lot of damaged people. One of the things about this whole like the transgender thing, studies have been done where they've shown that like teenagers who have gender dysphoria, which is a disorder, most of them work it out, and most of them actually just turn out to be gay. Most of them just turn out to be gay as adults. So it's just something that they go through as children. Where they're working that out.
But then,
and so like if you have like say if you have a gay boy or girl who then mutilates their body,
yes,
and then as an adult they're going to realize that they've mutilated their body because at the behest of like this crazy idea. And like
but the thing is like, that doctors diagnose it wrongly, and they're indoctrinated to believe exactly what you're just saying. People like Walt Heyer was one of those people, and now he can't get his little dingling back. It's gone, even though he's now male again. That's bad. Like I care enough that even though I'm probably going to be called a transphobe one day, I assume, even though I'm not, I care enough that I don't want them to have to end up regretting that and feeling that. So I would want intervention as early as possible.
As usual, we actually care about the human beings rather than the agenda.
The individuals.
Absolutely.
As soon
as someone calls you a transphobe, I don't know. No. I'm just going to tell you something. So Blair Koch actually made a video on this like last week, where it was a really, really good video. The guy's he's very articulate. He's great. Yeah, it was on Facebook. He should put it on YouTube because it was great YouTube content actually. So he said that when someone calls you a racist, you turn around and you say, well, if they call you a racist for talking about Islam or whatever, or wanting white farmers or whatever, you just turn around. Well, you're an apologist for murder. You're an apologist for rape.
I saw this. Okay.
And what you can do if someone says you're a transphobe, we'll say, well, you're an apologist for child abuse. That's what you are. You are defending child abuse. That makes you a don't explain yourself. Don't explain. Well, I'm not a transphobe. So don't say I'm not a transphobe because
you're falling into the trap.
Yeah, you say you are supporting the abuse of children. And that's what you're doing, and you just throw it straight back in their face because, they always project. They always project, and all you have to do is throw that projection straight back. And they won't be able to answer. They'll get triggered, they'll get upset, and they'll get angry. And then, as I've said, if you get them angry, then you win. Like as soon as they get angry, and as soon as they get emotional, and as soon as they start calling you stupid names like transphobe, racist, all that kind of stuff, they've lost the argument because. Unless you can prove someone, if you're going to say someone is a racist, you have to say you are a racist because you dislike an individual based on the color of their skin. If you're going to call someone a racist, you have to set it up in that you have this. This is the definition of racism. You are a racist because, and it fits this definition. That's how an argument works. This is how a genuine argument works. You can't just say you're a racist because I don't like what you're saying. As soon as they do that, they've lost the argument.
Absolutely.
You may as well just call it then. You may as well just laugh at them. Like I said, throw it back in their face, and you basically got them where you want them because they have no response.
Yeah. Very true.
I just mentioned to chat that I made a video once called Clive the Uber Driver. It is a horrendously cringy video. Did you ever watch that video, Dave? Clive the Uber Driver.
I did watch some of your early videos. I can't remember that one though.
The problem with Clive the Uber Driver is if you look at it close enough, you can actually see my current address. So I decided to make that one. I decided to make that one private until such time that I move my current location. But yeah. So I've left that one on private. I've got another one which was called it was like about poo. I did a stop motion with poo emojis where the poo emojis go and have a party. Like the poo emoji meets a devil emoji and takes disco biscuits and has a party. It's like it's just ridiculous. So I was telling Chad about all these horrible.
Why didn't we get that up on the XYZ? Oh my god!
I have no idea. So, in my mind, I'm like, this video is going to go viral for sure. It's like, and I just have this like horrible accents and stuff. Yeah, no, it was a really good chat. Anyone want to add anything before we call it a night?
Well, shouldn't you read all your chats? Isn't that what you did last time?
I mean, I've read quite a number of chats. If I was able to get super chats, I'd read every super chat out, obviously.
Oh, bloody oath. I totally get it.
You'd have to. Well, my channel's currently under review for monetization because I've hit the benchmark.
Oh, I thought the benchmark was 4,000.
Good work.
Is it 1?
No,
okay.
It's 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in the last 12 months. So
you've hit both those things?
Yeah, I hit them. The last that one video pretty much got me well over the target. So
Well
I mean the target, yeah. Well, I mean monetization doesn't. I'm not going to be able to make much money, but
hey,
for now anyway,
petrol money can't hurt.
Yeah, you've done some great work, Matty. Great work.
My amazing, super awesome one and only supporter on Maker Support is already helping. He's helped in doing quite a lot with his amazing contribution. It really helped. It really spurred me on to make as much content as I can. And if anyone else, I'll give it a bit of a plug. If you want to donate on Maker Support, there's a link in the description, just down there somewhere. Just down there. If you want to, no obligation, obviously. My channel's really small at the moment, so everything, everything's all a bonus. If you want to donate to XYZ, you can certainly donate to XYZ. That's another really good cause that you can send money to. Just remember that if you are donating to independent sites or to independent content creators, you are fighting against the power. You're fighting the man. You're killing the man. That's what you're doing. You're really fighting back, and that's your contribution. You don't have to make content. You can support creators and help them pay the bills and all that kind of thing, so that they can make as much content for you as possible. So every single time you make a donation, that helps quite a lot. If you're giving to people, it is out of the goodness of your heart, and you are doing quite a lot. I mean, I give to creators as well. I give to XYZ. I give to a few other people.
You give to XYZ. You give to yourself.
No, I don't own it. Dave owns XYZ. That's his.
Oh, so you contribute to him.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
very much
I get it.
Very much.
Well, it's not to David. David uses it to grow. He's going to use it to grow XYZ. You haven't actually spent it on anything yet, have you? Really?
No, we're going to target it. We're going to do some SEO. We're going to do some. We're we had spent a lot of money on Facebook, but it's going to go on the other platforms now.
Yeah. Don't be spending anything on Facebook. I should have I could have told you that. No, you shouldn't have said it.
That was a few years ago.
A few years ago.
Stupid.
You fool, Dave. You fool.
Yeah. You could try Minds, but Minds is a bit sucky. You could maybe try.
Minds is getting there. It's not there yet.
Minds, I don't know. It's Minds maybe not too bad. Gab, you can't actually. There's no boost option on Gab. There is one on Twitter, but I don't know how long Twitter's going to last either, which is a bit annoying. You could also, I'm sure you got to. We've got some big requests for Trans Maddie.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'll have to do a video because I want to do a video.
Idea.
I want to do a video about this trans issue, and I think Trans Maddie is going to have to. He's going to have to be born someday. So we'll probably. What's my trans? I'm gonna have to work on my trans voice. I won't do it here, but I'll have to work on the trans.
Your larynx.
Is your name going to be Madalena?
I'm trans, Maddie. No, that's not trans. I can't. That's not it. I'll have to work it.
Are you going to go with Madalena?
No, it's just Tranny Maddie.
Oh,
just like all my stuff. So it's like Tranny Maddie. We got Maddie, Tranny Maddie, Short Bus Maddie, and Professor Maddie.
You could do a Lauren Southern and actually go and legally change your gender.
Oh my God, you should try that as a social experiment.
Did she actually change her gender? I didn't know that.
She did it on Rebel Media.
She actually changed her gender.
She actually
legally. Legally in Canada.
Hard.
She went to a doctor's clinic and she said, I identify as male. She had a secret camera watching her And she walked down and she goes, "That's how easy it is. Like, there's no 1 year live as the sex that you adhere to. There's no psychologist or anything like that. You literally just go to the doctor, and that's it. It's ridiculous."
And she dolled herself up too, apparently. Like she
dolled herself down.
Well, she was looking as feminine.
Hey, baby. What's going on, Dave? I used to have a dick.
Did you really?
I believe you.
No, I didn't. Don't believe that. I was trying to be funny.
I know. Listen to her, Dave. She's got the squeakiest, annoying Minnie Mouse voice ever. There it goes again.
I love how everything always backfires on me.
You're okay.
I have my moments.
Every now and then.
Did you see the comment someone wrote before about you? Let me find it. It was really funny. It was good. I loved it. It was very accurate about you.
What was that?
A comment that someone wrote about you. I'm trying to find it. Hang on, I'm going out.
What did they? Someone said the dialogue on some of the clips is a little bit slow, which is probably. Yeah, I think he was talking about the greens video, where I think I probably spoke a little bit too slowly, and I probably put in too much. I probably put in too much of
too much of the retarded Nick McKim voice.
Yeah, I think I spoke. I did. Yeah, and you're right about that. I actually noticed that, which is here's the thing. I'm gonna defend it in that I can do that voice. I think I can do that voice and do it fast, but you can't actually understand it very easily. So I had to slow it down. So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Also, in your defense, Nick McKim is a retard.
That's exactly right. He is quite slow in the head and makes an absolute fool of himself. So I mean, maybe I got the character totally right. Maybe it was just method acting. You know, let's call it that for a second.
You did it too well. It's like some of the satire that the XYZ does. Like,
people
believe it because it's so believable.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, maybe what I could have done is done the voice, and what I did, I actually made the pitch higher in the effects. What I could have done is just made it faster, and that makes it higher and faster. So that might have made it work. That might have worked a little bit better. But yeah, thanks for the feedback, Iron 26. That's that's the kind of feedback that's really good, because it's like, I agree with you on that one as well. I think I need to work on the Greens voice. It's hard to do a dumb greeny voice and at the same time. It's like, have you noticed that? Like, really speaking like a green and sounding coherent, it doesn't match. You can't be coherent and a green. It's impossible. Literally.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we're starting to enjoy. I'm really starting to love these live streams every week because they are a good amount of fun, and we're getting a good amount of a good number of people watching. And so I really hope you. I really hope you do.
Me.
Because of you.
Yes,
think is that what
I posted on Gab. I posted that. I posted it on Minds, and I posted it on Facebook. So you're very welcome. I'm just joking. It's not because of me at all. You guys are really good.
No, it's all because of you.
No, I was joking.
It's 100% because of El Dia Opina.
It's so not. I was joking. But there is, Steve reckons I should have a regular, what did Steve write? He wrote something. Regular spot for El Dia.
Regular spot?
She should have a regular spot. Please don't be giving her big ideas like that. We want to be having rotating guests, so we'll probably get her back eventually. We want to be getting her back eventually.
I only read it out as a compliment to me. I wasn't saying that I wanted a regular spot. Well, relax. Okay. Calm your farm.
Okay. Sure, you didn't want a regular spot.
Why would I? I gave up gym to do this, and then we ended up going late anyway.
You gave up gym to do this? Wow, we really can't be doing that.
Because it was 7:30 to 8:30. That's usually when I go boxing. And last time, and I thought, well, I didn't do enough research, so I needed the time to. The El Dia and Maddie show. That's what I.
Please don't. You're going to be giving me nightmares. I'm going to have to listen to that squeaky ass laugh every week.
Shut up.
I've already burst 3 eardrums.
3.
There we go. Yeah, 3. I burst through 2 eardrums and I replaced one of them bursting again.
I think Maddie and Dave are doing a fabulous, fabulous job. And I think the rotating guest list is a good idea.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a few mainstays. We're gonna get a couple of people that we've had before back. Hopefully, Dave's working on was it a politician that you were working on, Dave?
We won't say anything just yet, but hopefully we'll get a movement for South African white farmers in Australia.
Yeah. So we're working on it.
Put on his shoulder.
I'm not saying we do. I'm not saying we don't.
I just burst my 4th eardrum.
Good. He's gone deaf, ladies and gentlemen. It's now the Dave and LD show.
And
okay,
look,
the rest of this live stream is going to be in Spanish.
Yeah.
Bueno, yo puedo si quieres. Es muy simple para mí para empezar a hacer así.
No.
On that note, guys, I hope you really enjoyed the content, and we will see you next week at 9:30 again. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll all see you when you see you. Thank you very much.
Subscribe to my channel.
Only if you want to.